Boom, 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 boom. What's up, Charles? Aloha, everybody. Here we are, ready to rock and roll on this wonderful, beautiful, peaceful, full moon Thursday night, man.
Okay.
Okay. Are you catching up on some work there, bro?
Never ending, brother.
We saw you yesterday. Was driving past to the airport, me and Joe, and saw you walking
Mm.
across the street. You look like you were on a mission, though. Like
Yeah.
a mission. I said, leave him alone. Like
Yeah.
he looking for somebody or something. I don't know what it was, but man, I was like, I recognize that walk. I recognize that look. I told Joe, let's just keep on driving.
Yeah. Just, all I can say is, like how we used to say, a drunk no count and talk is cheap.
Hmm.
Yeah. Just one of those days. But
Yeah. Well, the week is almost over.
it is
The
what it
week is
is. But,
almost over.
but I hope I was smiling when you saw me.
No, that's why we kept on driving. I was like, somebody's gonna get it. Somebody is see on the show, Charlie.
Uh,
Everybody's perception is that I'm the wild one, right? I'm the crazy one. I'm the loose cannon, but I know the real Uncle Charlie. And if you don't believe me, check go piss him off. Any one of you, I challenge you, go piss him off.
nah, I'm all good.
Anyway, I know, man.
Yeah. But how you been, my brother? How you been?
Good, good, good,
Okay.
good. Busy day,
Yeah.
busy day, and wrapping up the week. Looking forward to the weekend.
Hmm.
Football again. I love football, and so yeah, it's gonna be a great weekend. Tonight guys, I know I posted up Dr. Miscovich and Dr. Akiona. Dr. Miscovich is out. He's not feeling well, so he will not be joining us. And Dr. Akina
Hmm.
will be on though. So we're gonna make good on our promise. We're not gonna we're gonna have our little dialogue. But once Akiona comes on, then we are gonna your questions come in. We're gonna shoot them on the screen, and we're gonna they okay with the rapid fire. So we're gonna go rapid fire. A lot of questions. A lot of
Yeah.
questions. Today FDA comes out or CDC or whoever the heck it was that now it's okay. You can mix and match your vaccines. Johnson and Johnson got the green light. All of these things happening right now. So uh, we'll see. We'll see how A lot of questions. A lot of questions. There was a question for Dr. Miskovich from our good friend Marianne Martin about the. Don't shoot your questions now, guys. Don't shoot your questions now. Wait till she comes on because I'm not gonna be able to find them. Uh, anyway, the Dr. Miskovich mentioned the blood test that you can take. I remember him saying once it's like a $40 blood test that you can check your antibodies. So he's not going to be here. We can ask Dr. Akiona. I'm not sure if she can answer that.
Yeah.
But real quick. Last night I made a plea for everyone for donations for Pop Warner because we had a year and a half of no activity, no ability to raise funds, and we have the scholarship banquet and the cheer competition coming up in the next few couple of months. So I put out a call, man, to the village, and I got to tell you, over $1,000 so far, over $1,000 in a very short period of time. So thank you all. What the heck was that? That was like a bell. Yay! That's not my sound effect though, but I love it. Perfect timing. Anyway, thank you
Okay.
all that donated. If you still want to donate, please feel free. These monies are going to go straight to the kids. And I just really want to commend Pop Warner for the scholarship program. See, none of these football players or cheerleaders or spirit team, as they're called, can participate unless they have a 2.0 average throughout the season. And we have, I believe, it's 15 athletes, cheer and tackle football, that have GPAs 96%. It's awesome, and they are qualifying for scholarships that are given out by the National Papuan Association. So That's what the scholarship banquet is for, recognizing them, and the cheer competition to recognize the cheer competitors. So, do we have a goal? The more we get, the more we can give to the kids. That's kind of how it is. So, if we can reach 2,000, 2,500 would be ideal. We can provide the meals that we provide for the banquets are, is paid for by the league. So the kids don't pay, the parents don't pay. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I'm stoked that we got what we got. To be honest with you, I know times are tough for a lot of people. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you, love you guys. The village, man, the village.
Well, let me say this. I put out a plea to all of our friends out there. You helped us when we first started, and it was I know it was tough, but you kept at it, and we were able to donate all that money to the Hawaii Community Foundation that went for good use for those who
Mhm.
really need the help. And this one is, I I'm so glad, Brother Mel, you're going in that direction of helping the kids again because they've had it rough. They've had it rough. No in person schooling, and social behavior is a must. Is a must. And you hear all the horror stories about those who are actually suffering from not having that engagement, right? And so these are one of the ways where they can get together with friends, families, get together with a worthwhile organization, the league, the Pop Warner leagues, because that's what builds character, right? That's
Mhm.
that's what builds character, and from there, we need to uh, uh, promote promote good character. We need our really we need our children to be the leaders of tomorrow. That's what we need, and this is a way to start it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Charlie. Yeah, and I've been with Pop Warner for a long time. Patsy now is the league scholastics coordinator, so she's in charge of the
Oh, wow.
scholastics for all the associations. And I gotta tell you, man, I watch her at night going through report cards, calculating.
Mhm.
uh, you gotta give her a hand because
Right
that's
on.
tough. and
Yep.
and and she's got to make the call when kids are not up to that level. There's a process in place where the
Hmm.
kids got to go to school, and their teachers, all of their teachers, got to sign a progression report to show as long as they're progressing, uh,
Yep.
they can participate. So I will tell you that most of these kids uh, are at the level of 2.0 and above. We don't have a major
Yep.
problem. We're always going to have a few that are struggling, and a lot of it has to do with COVID. A lot of it has to do because they haven't been in school. These
Mhm.
kids, this generation of kids, are going to be in the history books because uh, this kinds of things don't happen in our
Mhm.
lifetime. So yeah, it's awesome, and I'm so thankful again, village people, for helping out.
Yep.
And I can assure you
Mhm.
that money will be put to good use. Patsy is a very frugal person, and
Mhm.
half of the money will go to the cheer competition, half of the money will go to the scholastics banquet. So that's how it's going to be divvied up, and I will provide a report to anyone that wants to see it. Not a problem, not a problem. So anyway.
Well, Brenda Martin, please do not worry. I lost a little weight. I am happy with this job. It allows me to really keep an eye on what I consume because if you pile it on too fast during the day, because the hours that I do work, I just want to make sure that I'm not tired at work. And my days are long. On average, it starts. I get up by 3 in the morning, and I get to work anywhere between 4 to 6 at any time. And my staff, I got the greatest staff. And I guess I spoil them too much because I bring in goodies. I try to bring in goodies as much as I can, especially if you haven't. Usually I won't do this, but I'm gonna say this: if you haven't gone to Kauai Bakery, and tried their malasadas, I tell you, you gotta try that. And they know me like a book. They open at 6 o'clock. I'll be standing outside, and they give me the finger. That means that yes, because I like clockwork, I'll order 2 dozen for the staff in the this dispatch office. 2 dozen malasadas. So I just gotta keep watch of what I consume, and then my day ends anywhere between 5, 6, whenever I get home, and I think starts all over again. But it's to make sure that we're doing everything right at the airports. Okay, that's what it's all about. Keeping you safe if you're traveling to another destination, and keeping everybody safe when they're coming into the garden aisle. Yeah.
Uncle Charlie, you're gonna lose your space in the sumo competition. Don't work too hard. The nice thing is Uncle Charlie brings all those pastries for the workers. He's losing all this weight and they all gaining them.
Yeah.
They all the workers gaining them, and Uncle Charlie is
They're
losing them.
happy bunch of employees. I tell you, it's
All the
uh,
pounds that Charlie losing, they're finding. Oh my God.
well, I did want to say there's been some news. While we're on the subject, there's been some news about things changing because the the signs of the times, right? Uh, the numbers have gone down, but there's so many variables to it. But Mel, I don't want to be a doubting Thomas in no way. I mean, that's what we always wanted to be, right? Get those number down. But I come from that old school where we got to try just a little bit harder because I I, I saw firsthand. We all saw firsthand what happens when we get so complacent and the thing came back with a fury, right? And then it's like, oh, then we all get stuck, and we get into that moment where everything around us shuts down. I don't want to go there, so that's why I tell everybody, okay, have fun, but please just be cautious on what you're doing. And
Yeah.
like you said, you saw me the other day. Well, I tell you,
Hmm.
when you get news of somebody coming in and things don't look good, and you got to call for help and whatnot, and somebody may be sick or whatever. Yeah, sometimes we don't get the news till after they get released, or something might come from the hospital that what the person might have been positive or was not positive, and it's still a scary thought because why? Everybody look the same. COVID has no
Yep.
differentiating characteristics. So you can be looking at somebody right in the eye, smiling, and that person can just be blowing magic dust on you. It's tainted with COVID. Who knows? So that's why
Yeah.
you got to keep the mask on. And it gets to the point. Um, I got it from this lady the other day. She said, I spent $2,000 to come to this island, and it was miserable. What happened to the lost spirit? I said, ma'am, I don't make the rules. Why are you getting mad at me for? But the mask and all that, that's hogwash. So I said, ma'am, I I hear you, but can I say something? She goes, what? I go, it's people like you that makes things hard. I gotta live under the same rules you gotta live. What makes you so special? Tell me, what makes you so special? I'm abiding by it. Why can't you? If I went to your state and the rules were same right now, I would abide by those rules because I'm the visitor. What makes you so special? Brother, I got clobbered for 20 minutes because why? All she wanted was to go back in to go get food or whatever, but because her flight wasn't until at a certain time, and the earliest they can go in is 2.5 hours before the flight, right? So they had to wait outside. They cannot wait inside. We don't make up those rules. We just enforce them. And boy, oh
Yeah.
boy, oh boy, I caught cracks right, left and right. And I'm
You
like,
should have sneezed. You should have sneezed on her.
no, she was,
Achoo.
she was, she was, she was. I mean, it appeared she was older. She was in her older years. I mean, she appeared to be 120 around there.
Yeah,
The way she was acting, whew, was rough. Was rough. So,
yeah. Dana said she had low blood sugar. You should have just give her a malasada.
oh, Dana, let me tell you, the thing comes out of the
Uh,
fryer because I usually have one, and trust me, I usually have one. But one thing about their malasadas, if any of you have tried Leonard's malasada, that's the bomb, right? But one thing about Leonard's, it's like Krispy Kreme. Krispy Kreme, you can eat the donuts the next day, just put them in a microwave oven for about 5 seconds, right? You cannot do that with Leonard's malasadas. This Kauai Bakery, I'll come back the next day. They don't eat all the pastries, right? They still leave them there because why? They said, "Oh, boss, no throw them away." They microwave them for about 8 seconds, and they start up and when you get it fresh that day, it's nice and hot and fluffy. And I tell you what, ask them you like the one without the sugar. Because what you do, you take that puppy home, the one without the sugar, you heat them up in a microwave, and you have that with a bowl of beef stew. Ooh, brother. Beef stew, and I mean, it's just like on Portuguese bread. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
okay, hold on. Yeah, I got a little technical difficulty here because the link that I gave Doctor Akiona
Yeah.
is the old link. You remember when we were having those problems? So let me get her the new link.
Okay. No, no, don't worry, sweetie. I got my gang here. Raylene Malama and Melissa Bolton, part of Charlie's Angels. And what's so beautiful is like you said, we've built up a family, right, with this show, and we got a lot of them. They call in. He goes, "Uncle, who giving you hard time? We'll take care of them for you." I go, "No, no, 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 no need, no worry." I just know like people get upset in things that I have no control. Really, it's they know me as the enforcer, but I'm just enforcing the rules. That's all it is. And you gotta do it with a smile. You have to do it with a smile
Hmm. Yeah,
because nothing is feels good about enforcing because we know that there's gonna be a winner and there's gonna be a loser, and nobody likes to be a loser. But if everybody just cooperate, then they should be all winners, right?
yeah.
But if you push against the system, there will be a loser. And I know it ain't gonna be me.
That's right. At the end of the day, you will win.
Yes.
All right, all right. The doc
It's
is in.
oh, she
The
is?
doc is in. Yeah, she can hear us, but we cannot hear her, but we can see her.
Is she firing on all cylinders tonight? Do we know
I
yet?
hope so. I hope so, because she's gonna have to carry the load of two. Look at her.
Yeah.
She's shaking her head. Nobody can see her, but we can see her. Let's just do it this way. I think it's more fun this way. We cannot see her. We just the public cannot see her. No, sorry. Here we go. What's up, Doc?
Hey.
Yeah.
Oh
What did
man.
you do to Misco? What happened? We'd stress him out too much. He got a headache.
I don't know. So because we were planning on he was planning on like multiple costume changes for this one because we talked about how much Steeler gear he was gonna turn off his camera, have a new jersey on, turn off his camera, have some like face black on. We were just gonna we have big plans for today, so I don't know.
Actually, he wouldn't even have to. All he got to do is put the Steeler logo on one side of his bald head, and it would just pass like the helmet. You know, you didn't.
Yeah.
You don't
I'll,
even
I'll I'll
just.
pass that on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we hope he gets better real
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah. I was bummed.
Yeah.
Kind of scared though, so
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Oh, sorry, sorry.
everybody got to take it easy. Everybody got to take it
Yeah.
easy and not work so dang hard.
Yeah.
Anyway, everyone, Dr. Akiona is with us tonight. Let me see if I can.
Hello.
Let me make sure I can get your. Boom. There we go. Put your name up so everybody knows who you are. And this is what we're going to do tonight. We're going to rapid fire. Rapid fire. So I told everybody, hold on to your questions.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
I did want to ask you to share. All the news came out today about the mixing and the matching and the Johnson and Johnson and all of that stuff. So maybe you can just start with that, and then my eyes are going to be down looking at the comments. So forgive me, but we're going to get as many of these questions up as possible.
Okay. Yeah, no, actually, I think one of the news reporters asked me to kind of talk about that earlier today. So I think Ali Iduklo asked about it. And I think actually the whole process was actually pretty fascinating because it was there was a series. So the Moderna booster, and then it was, the J&J booster, and then mixing and matching. And so there's actually several things that we were waiting for in addition to kind of that pending pediatric dose. So we already knew that mixing and matching. So we'll start with the Moderna. Okay, so Moderna, I think there's a few things about the Moderna booster. So the information actually was pretty good. It looks like basically boosting the Moderna was increasing the protection for the original strain over 13-fold. But it was actually increasing the protection against deltas, particularly about 17-fold. So that was pretty strong. That was, the thing was, it was really low numbers, and really they cannot compete with Pfizer, where Pfizer was actually kind of trialed in an entire country. So we have a lot of good data based on Israel. It's really, really hard to compete with that. So Moderna had smaller numbers. They were also testing a lower dose. And so there was a few reasons that they put out for this. They said, first of all, they wanted to use a lower dose because they're anticipating that this would be enough to make a robust response. The second thing was that they were anticipating less of the side effects because they're using the less dose when compared to the higher dose. And then the third thing, which is actually kind of important to me, I guess, is that they were looking towards the kind of like the global pressure about equity and availability of vaccines. So by using half the dose, you kind of increase the amount that's available to the general, just all the population in the world. And so that one, it was interesting because I think the committee that reviewed it, they agreed that this was more of like a gut feeling. This wasn't something that, it's the same. I'm still thinking, when you look at the globe, and even in our certain pockets of our community, getting those first and second doses are way more important. The other thing being that we were already doing third doses for the immune compromised, and we were doing the increase, the regular dose. And so they ended up unanimously voting to approve it, this lower dose of Moderna. And they actually specified it was for 65 and up and 18 to 64 with increased risk of either severe disease or increased risk of exposure. So they're still targeting it sort of for this high risk. And then Johnson and Johnson. So the interesting thing about Johnson and Johnson is, as a clinician, when we were getting people to get the J&J, in general, this group of people were like, no, I wanted it for the one dose. And so, when we were talking boosters, a lot of the J&J folks were they're like, nah, man, you got me one time, like I said. And so with their data, they were trying so to boost their dose, and they were doing different time periods. So 2 months after, 3 months after, 6 months after. And I think the development, so that the team that had developed it, they were like, they didn't want to ruin their reputation as a one dose kind of a one and done kind of model. And then there was, we were always kind of worried about the side effects, so like blood clots and Guillain-Barré syndrome. And so I think with the second dose, they were seeing less of this. So there still were issues with the blood clots, but it seemed like the booster was safer. And then even with Guillain-Barré, I believe the background risk, it was higher than the background risk for Guillain-Barré, but still they felt like they were seeing a lot less with that booster dose. And they ended up actually agreeing to approve this for anyone 18 and older more than 2 months after your first dose. And then the mixing and matching thing. So I mean, they're still we still have to like kind of talk about it in terms of like presenting this to the CDC and stuff. But the thing about it is other countries have been doing this for a long time. And so like the safety data, while the stuff that was presented was, a particular subset. And actually the study that I have it, I can send it to you guys, but it was showing that if we boosted the J&J, so the adenovirus vector with an mRNA, it was significant. I mean, the amount of increase in the protection in the antibody production was actually pretty significant. And so this was kind of exciting for the nerds like me, because I'm just kind of like, I mean, I'm science is, I love science, but also because then I, in thinking about what might be the best for my population and our people, it actually seems like the mixing and matching it as an option made complete and total sense. And so this one, the study, they did cite a study. The data was pretty strong, and it looks like initially they were saying, hey, no one had applied for an EUA yet, and we were just going to give expert recommendations. But it looks like they're asking actually for kind of language so that it would allow more flexibility in how we're administering the doses, and allowing there to be an option to boost your dose if you're Johnson & Johnson, for example, with an mRNA. So, I mean, I think all in all, I was excited this entire time. Additionally, I've been hearing news about the pediatric kind of like the timeline of things. And so even though we haven't really officially heard all of the approval process, we already know that the time, the production is starting, the plans for distribution is starting, and we're hoping to get that rolling too. So good time for vaccines.
So let me
Wow.
ask you. Let me ask you a question then pertaining to what you just mentioned. So, with a short timeline of testing as opposed to the Pfizer, a longer timeline, how do these companies that develop this, especially the release for young children and for those over a certain age, and why they pick over a certain age, how do they come about knowing what is the, I guess, recommended cocktail, and
Yeah, no, and
how,
that's
how,
the
how do they do that?
I think that's the biggest argument on the side of, so even when we're in the community, right? And I'm saying, hey, so my main concern really is the first and second doses and making sure that we're getting those in.
Right.
And boosting doses is kind of like supercharging people that have already had access to things. So I tell them, like, you're already fully protected. Like, you guys are fine.
Mhm.
And then, so we're making an assessment on a lot of people based on a very small amount, and that was what the drawback, or the kind of the argument against approving it was coming from this committee. They were saying, it really feels weird with this small amount of people to be making broad sweeping recommendations for a lot of people. And so it's like I think I like that we're talking about it. And then, there's certainly, like, when people are asking me how many people are actually coming out for this, and it's a select type of person, so it's, in general, they already are engaged in their healthcare. So it's not, I'm actually having to kind of talk them down a little bit. It's versus like having to really hard sell and be like, no, please do this to protect yourself. I'm actually having to like encourage them that, hey, you know what, you're a little early. Like, you have to wait 6 months and you're totally fine. You're going to be fine. And, we're not running out of supplies and everything's going to be great. And so it's the urgency of this doesn't warrant, I think, the amount of rushing that we like. It wouldn't warrant me kind of like rushing through and like extra boosting everybody. But currently, when I'm opening that vial, I'm not taking away a first dose from someone else to give a third dose to someone else. A lot of times we do have to waste what's in that vial anyways. And so at the moment, I'm like, I'm glad, if it's appropriate, we're giving these third doses to the people who can. But, even that committee was saying, when you look at the global population, we're still missing a lot of people. So
Mm.
should we be really promoting the third dose? I mean,
Okay.
I think
yeah,
that was Dr. Jerome Kim's, and he till today he still speaks about this is a global issue.
it
The fact
is.
that until we get the globe, the other countries vaccinated to a safe spot, it's going to be difficult to get rid of this virus.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Especially
first question. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no, no. I think especially like because I think of us as the gateway to the Pacific in East and West. So, I mean,
Mhm.
like what amazed me early on in the pandemic when we were doing a lot of testing is we're a stopover point for a lot of business people coming from China. So, I mean, it was just the amount of people that it's that kind of invisible population of travelers that we don't really, they're not commonly just tourists or anything like that, but the business folks that are coming in and out. So we're super connected. And I think that to me is the reason why we always have to kind of think about that global side of things. Yeah, sorry.
So first question is a pretty trivial one. I think this has been answered probably a billion times. But Lavanda, thank
That's
you for
okay.
asking. It's always good to refresh our recollection. If these
Yeah.
vaccines have side effects, why even offer them?
Yeah, and that actually came up because even with the news when they were asking about it, like how do you feel about the side effects? And I tell them, you know, a couple things. So we were able to see as a global population the effects of letting the disease kind of rip through people, anyways. And even in Hawaii County, we saw the effects of what it looks like when someone actually goes through COVID. And so I think the complications of the disease itself I feel like we're starting to hear more of it from the community directly. It's not worth it. So the risks of the risk of death and the risk of kind of long-term disability and just suffering in general of the disease itself is awful. I mean, you think of polio and all this kind of stuff. So like, people who had to be in iron lungs and measles, mumps with the swollen lymph nodes, but also sterility, deafness. You always think about what's the effect if we don't do anything about the disease. And so with COVID, it's the same. And like I think someone did say, hey, even all the medicines that we take for granted, like Tylenol and ibuprofen, they all have side effects, and so it's always kind of a risk benefit thing. But I think this one comes down kind of more firmly on the side of benefit overall. I mean, and I tell people up front, I'm like, anytime you're getting an immune shot, like a vaccine, we're revving your immune system, and we're doing this on purpose. And so if you think about it, having a little bit of a reaction is your immune system just saying, you know what, I picked up that instructions and I'm doing something. And so I tell people, like, it's okay. That's exactly what we wanted it to do. Take your Tylenol, take your ibuprofen, drink your water, and let your body do what it needs to do, because that's exactly what we wanted. And if you don't get a reaction, it's okay. So,
It's interesting because one of my coworkers got her shingles shot yesterday, her shingles vaccine, and she's suffering today
yeah,
from the side effect of the shingles vaccine. But no one questions the side effects of the shingles or the flu shot. It's
yeah,
just COVID. It's everyone's like, oh my god, the side effects. But I mean, my coworker had her two. In fact, yeah, she had her two shots, her two COVID shots. She said this was worse. This is worse. And in fact, she had the shot yesterday, or day before yesterday. Today it was even worse. And but the risk benefit, right? Who the heck wants to get shingles? Is a very dangerous thing to get when you're older. So it's the same with COVID. But you don't hear the people say, "Hey, don't take the shingle shot because you can get on sorry, you can get on reaction."
yeah.
But man, COVID, a lot of people argue about the.
Yeah, it's a little, it's political. I mean, it became, I think, a little bit more in our emotional part of our brain, and that's normal. I mean, I think it was so unknown and so scary for a long time that I tell people, you know, it's. I feel like we all reacted that way too. So it's the more they know, the better they'll. I'm hoping the better they'll feel. And so I think we're looking. I saw the person who asked that question. Yeah, so when I'm giving somebody the vaccines, I'm telling them, like, we're turning on your immune system and stuff. And I tell them the bad stuff, the scary side effects tend to happen immediately. And so that's why we have you guys wait with us for 15 to 30 minutes. And so I tell them, I have all of my medication. I'm ready for it in case it does happen. We're completely stocked. I've never actually had to use it yet, so knock on wood. But I had a couple of people vasovagal, so they kind of pass out. But they usually warn me that they're not good at shots in general. We give them some water, give them some space, and they're okay. But the long term stuff, right? So it's like Guillain-Barré it's like a paralysis that kind of moves from the extremities in. That actually happens with a lot of different types of viruses and a lot of different types of infections. And so it's I think it's good to be educated about it, but not to focus like just on the side effects themselves. Just understanding that any shot, we're turning on your immune system, and we're asking it to do something that is above and beyond its normal function. So feeling something is okay, and then just we just got to like kind of normalize when to call your doctor and when to just kind of chill a little. Should a keiki do titer? Oh,
Should a
so
keiki do titer if they got the vaccine when it first rolled out? I don't think the keiki could get the vaccine
well, the
when
12 and
the.
up, the adolescents maybe.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, so I think this is an interesting question. And so to be honest with you, and I've talked with a lot of patients, and I think your access to getting a titer should be improved. Like, I think if if it's something that you're worried about, we should be able to order it. It's a pretty difficult order. It's a pretty difficult test to order because very few labs are offering it currently. But that being said, at this point, we don't need to do it for everybody. And so I think this is part of the kind of the reason there was some concern about promoting the booster dose. So it's not that you're not protected in general. It's just that we are super protecting you with that booster dose, because we know that over time it does, your protection kind of drops off a little bit. And we didn't do enough titer studies in general to really understand a hard and fast cutoff, because it varied pretty widely. What we mainly knew was that your natural immunity definitely mostly kind of dropped off pretty quickly. The antibodies seem from immunization seem to last a little bit longer. But in certain cases, I am recommending titers, and usually those are the ones who are like immune suppressed. So keiki who have had chemotherapy, keiki who are on like lupus drugs, keiki who are on who've had transplant, leukemia. So any of the blood cancers in particular seems to affect the levels of antibodies. And so in those cases, I actually would suggest doing titers. For the vast majority of them, for now, it's not necessary. The main thing that we're going to do is, encouraging to wear your mask, social distance, and wash your hands.
All right. We've heard of people who are fully vaccinated with 2 shots catching COVID. Had there been any cases of people who had their boosters ever caught COVID?
So I'm gonna have to look up that one, because I think we only really started boosting fairly recently, and I'm not sure how the state is keeping that data anymore, because technically we call you fully vaccinated 2 weeks after you complete your series. So irregardless if you get that booster, it doesn't change your status. Like, you've never dropped out of being fully vaccinated. You're just boosted, and you don't get like a gold star on your card or anything. So that is I'm gonna have to dig in and see what exactly the Department of Health and other states too, like how they're actually dealing with that, because I don't know the answer off the top of my head right now.
Is there any documentation that you know of when someone gets so highly boosted that they're basically 100% immune? Because we've talked about it before, about because of what the lieutenant governor has said, and we said, hey, be cautious how you use that uh, when he talks about immunity, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, it kind of misleads people. But now
Yeah.
we're talking about super dosing
I know.
you, and I'm one of those that got super dosed, but yet I kind of like whew, went on the loopy end for a little bit. But
Yeah.
but have you heard of anything as such that you can get so um, boosted
So,
that you're actually 100% immune?
and I think so. Like, here's the thing, right? We're actually kind of playing chicken with like a really, really smart,
Virus.
like something that's actually actively trying to evade us, right? So it's kind of like it's a game almost, where the virus is trying to outsmart everything we're trying to do, natural immunity or not. It's just trying to evolve. And so, like, the idea of the only way we would ever kind of get completely rid of it would be for everybody, or 80% of the population in the entire globe to both either get vaccinated and or follow all of the isolation criteria and let it peter out, and like it never even has a chance to replicate again. Every time it replicates, every time it transfers into a new person, there's always a chance for it to mutate. And so I think you're right, it's completely misleading, because no matter what we do, you know how many variants of interest there are. That means that there's been enough changes to different parts of this virus and always with the intent to either evade our own natural immunity or the medicines or the antibodies that we're vaccinating using our body to build. So, and you know what though, I do know of a person who got the Moderna. The files were lost and then went ahead and got the Pfizer and does believe that he is Superman and is trying to talk us into giving him the J&J. And we're like, seriously, guy? Like, but I am kind of curious to see what his titers are like. But I did hear of this person.
Well,
So,
I heard that there's some people that have actually taken a lot of booster shots, but when they jumped into the swimming pool, they sank straight to the bottom. So I guess they cannot swim.
boy.
So,
That's a
Doc, I
medical
know,
offshoot.
Doc, you mentioned earlier about the Moderna booster. If someone, the question is, someone got the J&J 6 months ago, considering getting the mRNA Moderna, will she get half a dose or a full dose? I think you mentioned earlier that the Moderna was a half dose.
Yeah, the third Moderna if it's a booster, it
Yeah,
was going to be.
booster.
And I was bringing up, I said, we know that mixing, so AstraZeneca with Pfizer was safe. I was trying to bring up the study because the study itself, the one that we reviewed, it had 458 volunteers divided into 9 separate groups. Initially, they all did their J&J or the 2-dose series of Moderna and Pfizer, and then each of those got the one-time booster. And I'm trying to see what they did because it's going to be based on that one. I believe this one is saying it was the lower dose. It's the 50 milligram booster. Oh, actually, they did the 100 milligram booster, so they did the higher dose in the study, and we are approved for the lower dose. And so it looks like the best response was J&J boosted with the full booster of Moderna, or J&J boosted with Pfizer. So actually, that came in second. Okay, second place. And they were doing full doses with the mixing study. So I think that one is gonna, the decision, we're waiting for the wording on it. And it seems like, so to be honest, like the third doses that we had been doing were for the immune compromised, and they were getting the full dose. So, before the Moderna got approved, the third dose for immune compromised that had been started already were actually the same 0.5 mLs or 100 micrograms until fairly recently. And so again, like the reason why they tried that lower doses, they felt like it was giving them a robust enough effect. They felt there theoretically would be less side effects, and they were trying to extend the amount of doses that would be available. So I know that doesn't really answer your question, but
No,
I
No,
don't
no.
actually.
I think it's so new. We're gonna have to just wait and see what we get and
Yeah.
what the directions are. You know, I'm inclined to get the Moderna because I got the J&J. Whether it's the half dose, full dose, the needle is the same damn size. So for me, they give me
It
three
is.
doses. It's still the
I
same
feel like
needle.
the full dose would make sense to me because
Yeah,
it's not telling you that you have to get 2 doses of Moderna, just the one.
right. Real quick, I know we kind of touched on this, and this question is too long. It won't fit on the screen. Can someone pay for an antibody test out of pocket? I know you already said it's tough to
Yes.
get. Um,
Yes. So a
but the
regular
real,
antibody test, yes.
yeah, I guess the titer. I don't know if this is the titer.
So
Can the antibody test differentiate antibodies from vaccine versus natural
yes.
infection after the fact?
Yes. Yep. So the original antibody test that actually is available through diagnostic and clinical, I
clinical.
believe used to be roughly $40 out of pocket. That was the original one that we used to have. So actually, a lot of my positive COVIDs from last year, they were willing to pay for it. And at some point, we actually did that at the county. We were drawing it on site because we had our own, like, we brought our own. Yeah, we had a lot of fun with that one. But so people wanted to know because a lot of people, the thinking was that they thought they had COVID because they had like really severe illnesses, and then like in December, January, maybe had some travel, and then so they were convinced that they had the infection, so they were just trying to check with this antibody. That was $40, I believe, 40 to 45. It was an IgG test. They were giving us positive or negatives, and they were giving us general levels, like what they were. Um, and that technically is a titer level. Like a few months after that, when vaccines started rolling out, so I think we were doing antibody draws in the field from May of last year, May, June. Sorry, so it would have been 6 months later. We were doing, we did have to do an antibody draw and titer for somebody who was immune suppressed. So he had COVID, they got the shot, and they're trying to figure out if he had even mounted any immune response. And so there is, I think it was Quest Diagnostics that we had to order it through. They did pay cash for it because the insurance was like saying it wasn't necessary, even though we made a strong case. That one was it was more. So I want to say it was between $80 and $100. And it was looking at the capsid. I believe it was an antibody to the capsid versus the spike protein, which is what we're making with our. So they drew both of them, or they drew two samples, one to check for the capsid or the IgG that for the original infection itself, and then the other one for the spike protein that we are creating the antibodies for from the vaccine. And so I do know it's possible. It's just and you do have to pay cash for it because insurance is basically trying their hardest not to pay for anything.
Go figure. I'm sorry, but I missed the conversation on blood clots. What was when you spoke earlier? I believe you were talking about the initial vaccine and not the booster.
So Janssen, it's particularly with the Johnson and Johnson, and then so they said it's still a concern, but that they felt it was, well, the data showed that there was less of it with the booster shot, but it's still something that we gotta keep in mind: the increased risk of blood clots for the Johnson and Johnson booster.
Yeah, I just haven't heard. I haven't heard. I know a lot of people that took the Johnson and Johnson, and I just haven't heard any serious side effects at all. And you would think we would have heard it, but so I don't know. I didn't even. I had a sore arm. That was the extent of my reaction. So we'll see what happens when I get my Moderna.
There was one question that popped up on the screen. I thought it was kind of interesting. It says, so this person is asking about titer level blood tests to see if they need. Will there? Do you believe or think there'll eventually be a time where the titer can determine whether you need a booster or not?
I think like so the theoretical part of my brain says that would make the most sense, but they haven't really been able to. So similar to like when we are talking about when you're testing people for the PCR,
Hmm.
we're always trying to figure out how sensitive is too sensitive. So it's like kind of similar. It's like how much is enough. We do have general cutoffs. So I think like when you look at like MMR, and we have to go to work. There, we don't want to just keep on boosting you with measles, mumps, and rubella every so many years. There actually is a point where it's like too much is too much. So we do titers for that reason, and we do acknowledge like a level that's acceptable, and below that we would actually recommend a booster. So I feel like in theory that would be coming. That would be where we would want to be. I think that would also kind of help with the reassurance for people, just like, do I need it or not? Because when you don't have a cutoff, everybody feels like they need it, or no one feels like they need it, because we cannot give you a solid answer, either way. And so I think we're not going to get rid of COVID for a really long time. So that probably will be where it's headed in terms of like a way to figure out
Hmm.
who and when maybe needs boosted.
Is there ever a period of time you think that we'll get to a point where if we get these boosters and it becomes so effective that sometimes it could do an about face and basically worked against us, meaning instead of helping us fight, it will it's it and the only way I can explain it is like I remember when I used to clean pools, they tell you shock a pool to get rid of the all the buildup in the pool, right? Like
Mhm.
the algae. But if you shock too much, basically the shock fights itself, so it cannot fight the algae anymore. It cannot stop algae growth.
Okay.
Can this happen with boosters or with these vaccines? Do you think? Or
Like
it's like basically it works against itself where it renders it almost useless.
the vaccine renders
Yeah.
itself useless. So I mean, I think that's the idea of like the keeping ahead of the virus itself, because I think that's part of it, right? The virus is always trying to figure out ways to make it like
Mm,
to cheat us, right? So that we're
yeah.
essentially just kind of, I mean, I remember a few years ago where we kind of missed the mark on the flu shot. And so, it's supposed to be the four most common, it's a quadrivalent, right? So they're trying to protect against the four most common flu viruses of the season. And that's why it changes every year, because it's kind of, we figure it out, that they make it, they produce it. And then that one year when they gave it to us, it was like, I think they missed the mark on the big one. And so it was like we were all poking ourselves in the arm and maybe turning on our immune system, not feeling so great and not getting protected from like the big stuff. So I don't know if that is what you're kind of saying, like where we would actually be exposing us to more risk than benefit, because that definitely can happen. And I think that was actually one of the reasons why I was more excited about the mRNA, because the mRNA is using like this little target molecule to give your body instructions. And in theory, you can modify the instructions based on what we're seeing, the changes happening for the virus itself. And so it's actually, I feel like it's a little bit more updatable, in terms of like when you think of when your phone needs an update, when your operating system on your computer needs an update, you could actually, in theory, update it. And so Moderna actually did say that they were trying to, kind of target certain changes a little bit more. And they were trying to do things like combine it with the flu shot and stuff like that. So I think they were thinking that way, right? So you're trying to maximize the benefit, minimize the risk. There's always going to be some risk. But if you totally miss the mark, like that one year, I remember that flu shot, and people still use that against me in my office. That like, remember that year when it was useless to get the flu shot? And I was like, oh my God, yeah, I know, but still get your flu shot. Like, just some people, we mess up sometimes. Like, that doesn't negate everything. Like, that's not a blanket statement. Like, yeah. But I think that's what you're saying, right? Is like,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
with the risk outweigh the benefit potentially. So we got to. I think that's why it's good to review the data a lot and hold people accountable, hold these development companies accountable, so that they can prove that it's effective. And I think the number so far, they've been pretty good. We've been moving fast, but they've been pretty transparent.
Okay.
All right, expiration dates on the cards. Both are not the same dates. Obviously, different lots,
Yes.
different expiration dates. So totally normal, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So then, and immediately when things got approved, they had a different life expectancy. And so I think a lot of times what happens is companies will submit for this emergency kind of approval. And under the emergency approval, a lot of times the lifespan of the product will be super short. But they know it's actually good for a lot longer than that. It's just that under this emergency use agreement, it's going to be. I mean, they did this similar to for our rapid tests, where the rapids were like, "Oh, these are only going to last for 6 months," but the company had put in for 2 years, knowing that it would actually last longer than that. They get approved for 6 months, and then later on they extended it. So if you did see in some cases in the beginning, we were using vaccines and we were looking at the expiration date and we're like, oh man, we got to use this fast. But we knew that more recently, as things got the full approval for Pfizer and as things have been more approved for Moderna, the expiration dates are actually like a year later. But it's just in that emergency moment, they really limited. They wanted to make sure we were going through supply. So, I mean, sadly, there are a lot of doses that were kind of dumped because they were expired. And that was why I think one of Misco's things was, the ones that were getting close to expiration dates, they were actually taking down towards the border in Arizona and just kind of having the high risk folks, the migrants who were needing some care. They were getting they were vaccinating because the physicians all know that those are not expired. But we also know that in the U.S. system, we couldn't use them anymore. So it was one of those like, what do you do? And so that was a special kind of situation with the Border Patrol and with medical aid and stuff that they had agreed just before it expired, we were going to kind of use this in a high risk population that definitely were coming into crossing the border.
Okay, real quick. There's a finger prick antigen or antibody test that was quite common. We had Dr. Tion Koi back last year doing them. The question is again, it's too long to put on the screen. The question is the blood test that you guys are talking about, the titer or whatever, the antibody test, the blood test, obviously more accurate than those finger prick tests. Is there a
Yeah.
difference?
Yeah, so the finger prick test, I mean, it's just a capillary blood test. So a lot of times you're just taking a little bit from that capillary system, but when you're drawing it from your arm, you're able to kind of draw a little bit more from like a solid sample of blood. A lot of the tighter ones that we're gonna do need significantly more than you can get from like a few blood drops, right? So a few drops of blood not going to be enough for this one. And so I remember the antibodies we were drawing, we were having to kind of let it sit for 30 minutes, spin it down, and then put it on ice. And they were removing the top part, and then they were running it on that lower part. So a lot of times, actually, in the field, we were collecting it up in North Kohala, spinning it down, like we were processing it for them, and then dropping it off. So yeah, usually we're drawing either from your over here or over here. If we were super fun, like my ex-husband got his blood drawn by my team, and they actually poked him here, here, here. No, I'm just kidding, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh God.
he was really brave.
I don't know if I would go to my ex-wife's team if I had to get any kind of
He's
medical
such a good
medical
sport,
treatment.
you know.
Yeah, you know when it's bad when they start drawing by your karate someplace
I
around.
Yeah.
was like real central, you know,
Okay.
or
We're gonna
on your
start.
temple.
We're gonna start rapid firing because we got a bunch in the queue. If both the mRNA and J&J both are not a live virus, how can it infect other people, or can they?
So you're not infecting people in general, you're not infecting people because of the vaccine. It most likely would be because you're exposed to somebody else, and so you can still 2 weeks you're still vulnerable. So I tell people the reason why I was pushing Pfizer for a while is because it's 5 weeks till you're fully protected. Get the shot 3 weeks later, get a shot 2 weeks later, you're fully protected. But during that 5 weeks, you're vulnerable. And so J&J, you get your shot 2 weeks later, you're protected. During that vulnerable spot, though, you're still able to catch it. You're still able to catch it even when you're after. You're fully vaccinated. It's not that you're never shedding active virus. So if you were to get the shot and never be exposed, you're not going to pass anything on to anybody. It's you might feel crummy because your immune system's turned on, but you don't have any live virus in you. Whether you have the adenovirus vector, which is that little so J&J, that's how they're carrying it into your body, or the mRNA, you don't have any live virus in you.
Awesome. Are we expecting more variants?
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. And so you think of like flu. So, we think of and these little suckers they're smart. I mean, this is how they survive. And so just like you and me, they just want to survive. And they don't care. So it's just kind of like if you have kids, I have a kid. They're always trying to kind of think of ways to kind of outsmart their dad or their mom, and then try and find different ways to get the candy from their grandma without doing their chores. And so this is the same thing. They're always trying to outsmart your body, hide in different spots. So like shingles, you get chicken pox, it hides in one of your nerve areas, and then you get stressed out and now you have shingles. It's the same. These viruses are, it's just, I mean, that's why people make their entire life just studying like a few viruses. Like their entire life is just spent studying different aspects of virology. And so, we're expecting the public to just understand all of these aspects that are really intricate. And so, yes, we're going to get more variants. They just always want to try and outsmart us. And so we try to keep ahead of them.
All right. I got more comments than questions. We did have you answered the question. We had a question from a viewer that emailed me the question. That was about the titer. I'm still a little confused about the titer. I know Dr. Miscovich talked about you can go down to the lab, but are you saying that right now it's
No,
not?
you can. It's just it's going to be a sense. So the basic one, the IgG, the basic one, I know clinical and not. And actually, I'll try to get a better answer for you guys, because I'll talk to I bother clinical labs kind of a lot, so I'll ask them what the updates are. I know that that would have been in January. I feel like that I was helping this one gentleman kind of figure out where and at that point, I was also harassing the state labs about their genome sequencing, just making sure that we were staying ahead of the variants of concern, that we knew what was coming in, because I mean, there's a lot that we're asking the labs to do right now that maybe in normal times they weren't having to do. And the nice thing is, when we put pressure on the private labs, so like clinical, they have national and international reach, so they can kind of figure out what's been going on elsewhere and then make sure that we get it here too. So you should be able to go to your doctor and talk to them about it. I know it's a lot to keep up to date, but just there is a different order for looking at the antibody that you would create if you had COVID versus the spike protein, or the stuff that you're making in response to the vaccines. So there is a way to differentiate, but it would help if you had your doctor.
Is a physician needed for the antibody test, or can you just go straight to the lab and pay out of your pocket?
See, because I've only ever ordered it for people, and so they were coming to our drives, and I was ordering it for them.
I
Okay.
think
I
you
believe
have
they're
to.
gonna ask you. Yeah, I think you're gonna have to.
You're gonna
Yeah,
have to.
I mean, I think if you pay cash, they'll take your money. Just call the lab and make an appointment. I mean, it's. I know you could go get a COVID test without a you had to pay for it, but anyway. Doctor, the northern United States are surging, as are European countries: UK, Russia, Ukraine, Greece, Romania. What's in store? Okay, what's in store for us? Dr. Tim Brown was on Spotlight last week, and he talked about this. He didn't talk about the
Yeah.
other countries, but he talked about the Northeast and the Northwest of our own country. He talked that Dr. Lee Altenberg is concerned about the same thing. What are your thoughts on what's happening in other parts of the country and other parts of the world? And should that be a clue for us?
Yeah, yeah, and I think because we're watching Russia, where they have, and so the hard thing being, different countries have different manufacturers and different types of vaccines. So one thing that came up, I think, that we were talking about recently in like the physician groups that I've been, like, we're trying to keep tabs on everything, and it was UK in particular, that there's it's still a Delta, but it's a different type of Delta that's starting to take over in UK. And so there's a couple things that we were worried about. One is that the UK did a better job than we did at rolling out vaccination across the entire country. So, I mean, nobody got 100%, but they actually did a pretty good job in terms of like arming their National Health Services Corps, getting the docs involved, and really rolling it out. We don't have that. And so, what we're seeing is, when you look at other countries that look like us with pukas, so we have really, really good vaccinations. So you can make the case, like, if you really generalize stuff that they've been doing in the news lately, where they're just like, oh my gosh, we're over 70% vaccinated. And, at face value, that's great. But when you really dig down into the numbers, it actually, there's big swaths of areas that are left unprotected still. So we're not nearly there at all. And so I think that's the situation a lot of times with the northeast side of things. Is like, one, the virus is always trying to change just enough to get through. If you don't 100% kind of protect the entire community, and so we still have our weak underbelly right now is still our kids. And so the 12 and under, and I don't want you to think like they're suffering suffering like, but they're they're key in the chains of transmission. So they can oftentimes be really mild. Like, I think I talked about it on the news, but a lot of kids, they could have the sniffles and you don't even know it, but they can pass it on. And so, like, just having like a little reservoir for it to kind of stay for a little bit and then move on, that's going to be our weakness. And so, these kids, every time we have fall break or we have anything where people are traveling, then they take the virus with them. And I think it's a difficult thing. It's just,
We just got
we're
to
not,
be careful.
yeah, we're not
We got
pal.
to not let our guard down. Exactly, and I think that's the point Dr. Tim Brown was trying to make. Hey, this is far from over. We need to be careful. We need to do our best. Let's see. Does the doctor have any knowledge or comment on the so-called antibody drugs being researched at present? It involves protein trackers to attack the virus at different spike sites.
So
I have no clue.
I think they're talking about maybe the oral medications that they're
Hmm.
trialing, and so I think that. So I'll be honest, with the treatments, like any movement on the treatment front is a plus for me, because we, knowing what we know and like seeing how things went, there really wasn't much development in terms of like really good effective treatments. And so when I look at what we've done, so the antivirals, the monoclonal antibodies, the different cocktails, we never actually got something. We didn't have a lot of resources either, but it's just the push for actual treatments. Basically, we were always in crisis, so we're always, these people were coming in really sick, so we were just basically kind of trying to buy them time and just really treating the severe kind of manifestations of the disease. So we were intubating them because they could no longer breathe for themselves. We were doing ECMO because their body was kind of shutting down. We were doing all these like really big procedures, and so like I think the focus on just something to treat, we never really had either the time, the space, or the like dedication of resources to do that. And so we went immediately from testing to vaccination. People were trying to push different types of treatments. We do have the antivirals and the different type of monoclonals. So this oral medication, I'm optimistic about it. It's just I think usually when the treatment time comes, we're focused on keeping them alive in the last, in this last round. At least it was more about keeping them from crashing, and really trying to figure out the threshold for identifying who would be appropriate for these kind of oral medications. So what I'm hoping is this is going to give me something in the outpatient setting, so something that like I'm going to anticipate their higher risk. And so currently I'm doing that with monoclonal. So if they're higher risk, I'm already treating them with monoclonal because we want to prevent it. And so what I'm thinking is that's kind of where we're headed, is we're going to have to anticipate it, because by the time they're symptomatic, a lot of times that it's pretty quick that things might get worse. And so a lot of times we are either not getting access to the remdesivir, or it's not even in the front of our mind anymore. I don't know. I'm sorry, Sam. I don't know if that answers your question, but
Hey, Doc, we this is kind of switching away from what we've been discussing, but I wanted your take on there's so many suggested methods: wearing a mask, social distancing, besides taking the vaccine, right? So someone like myself who works at the airport, I just see the amount of bodies coming in, and it's just there is no matter how hard we try to socially distance, because everything is, to me, I think is based on some sense of enforcement. That's the only way we can get the message across, because you can put all these big stickers on the ground, and you can get it says stay 6 feet apart, but that never happens. What else do you think needs to be done to try to fight this thing off? Because I can tell you right now, aside from wearing a mask, the majority of the people coming in, they don't social distance. The good amount of people come in and say they're vaccinated, but we really have no way of validating the card where it came from. I've seen where some coming in from like Mexico. I can't read the language, so what do I do? And I guess there's someone out there that says, if you can't read it, then just don't let them in. Well, it's not that simple. So I think from a doctor's standpoint, what's your take on how everything the state is? And this is not a political question.
no, yeah, I know.
What do you think the state needs to do? Because this thing will just continue to fester.
So
At
honest
the,
opinion,
yeah.
I mean, my honest, and then this is like, it's been frustrating. So honestly, what needed to happen and what still needs to happen is resources actually have to go to, as you're saying, enforcement, but also just, we told them, like, you cannot take away the resources that's needed for isolation and support of people who are infected. So when you're infected, and this was even, it was markedly more important with the Delta, because you were infecting way more people than you were with the original virus. So what had happened, especially in our county, they took away all of the resources in terms of supporting people to leave their home and be isolated somewhere else, in terms of, the getting people contact tracers, to really like trace out where it was spread, and to really like do a really good job of preventing any further spread. That is, it feels super simple, and we've done it before, but I mean, that was, I think that is our Achilles heel. That was that. So that what we saw with the spike,
Mm.
it was, in a lot of ways, it was preventable. So people, even with the right education, maybe didn't have the resources. I had a lot of people who didn't have the resources to isolate themselves, or they ran out of food, and so then they would go out and go get food. We were relying on a lot of charity, a lot of different, and then people started to realize that there wasn't anybody enforcing the quarantine, which I would say that majority of people are really good about it. Like they don't want to get people sick. It just takes a few people to do some really, really silly things, and they just infect a lot of people. And so it was like, in some cases we were catching some people doing some pretty reckless, not great things. And I had nobody to call and to enforce, because civil defense was no longer filling that role. There wasn't anybody to
Mhm.
report this to. There wasn't any place to put them until fairly recently, when, at least in Kona side, we do have some place, but our island is so big. So
Yep.
I would say that would be the biggest thing. If you put resources back to enforcing it, to contact tracing, and to helping the people who get sick isolate and keep themselves safe and stopping the spread, we would have been able to stop a lot of the cases. And then if you kind of project that forward, a lot of the deaths too, because it was unnecessary, I think.
All right, we got two more questions. If someone has a rash reaction after taking the first, okay, what
Yep.
is it?
Yep. So I tell people, actually, if you have got a rash, take some Benadryl. And what I have been doing is I do have some Benadryl on hand. So I tell them, either, you can bring it with you if you want. I can give you that shot and you can take it, and I can watch you a little while longer. So some people, I know, because one of them was actually an adolescent, and she was, I think she had chemotherapy. She had a special situation, and she was like, I'm not super crazy about, like I'm not over like helicopter mom, but I was a little worried. And so I was like, okay. So pre-medicated her with Benadryl. They drove down. We talked about it. I gave her her shot. She waited. My nurse was just kind of hanging out with her for a while, and that was enough. And so again, this is your immune system turning on. So very few reasons for you not to get the second shot. But this makes a good point for, why it would be good to just, have a good professional, like healthcare professional or provider near you. Because and just being aware, just let them know, that you got that rash. But if you were coming to mine, I would say that, bring your Benadryl with you, and talk to me, talk to me or my RN, and then you would either hang out with us for a little while, or we would hang out with you for a little while and tell you jokes. In general, it's okay though. You should get it.
All right, and final question for the night: can Dr. Akiona please speak to the risk of long COVID in keiki and adults? Also, what is being seen with reinfections? Do symptoms seem to worsen with each bout? There are now people on their third bout with COVID. That's it.
Okay. Risk of long COVID. So, you know, long COVID in and of itself is a new entity. And so I think it's kind of like, there's a lot of different things, different kind of, we may end up kind of subdividing it into different types of stuff. And so I think, I can tell you that it's pretty common. So like maybe between 1/5 and 1/3 of people that have come back from it, especially, it wasn't necessarily tied to how severe your symptoms were, but a lot of times it was. So, a lot of my folks who had the more moderate to severe COVID, either have like persistent shortness of breath, or the recovery time, for them to do their normal activities hasn't recovered months out. This is where we are actually kind of the most kind of loud about what's going on, because I do work comp as well, and I'm thinking about all of the people who are probably not going to be able to return to their regular employ, like their regular jobs, their regular kind of quality of life. And so like we're only going to know the overall impact of this like a year out, 2 years out. And Miscovich talked about this before, where we're going to see more of them kind of pass away delayed. So it's not, you get your illness, your life never gets back to normal, and then you pass away of maybe something else, but the COVID actually directly contributed to it by weakening your system. So those kind of things. Kids, when we're looking at the bigger picture, a lot less, but when you look at them as a group, it's a much smaller percentage of them that are getting hospitalized to begin with. So the breakdown of those that end up needing the hospitalization and the intubation and stuff, it still follows that, about 1/5 to 1/3 still have some symptoms months out. The reinfections, you're right. I had somebody who's been positive for the 3rd time. And so, this one, it's a little hard to predict because I think with the Delta variant, the symptoms were a little bit different. And so and a lot of it comes down to patients' recollection of things. And so I think in a handful of mine, they felt like that first bout was the worst. I don't know if you guys remember, but back then, a lot of the symptoms were the shortness of breath, the coughs and stuff. But in Hawaii, we actually had a lot of GI symptoms. So we had a lot of nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. This time around, more like allergies, headaches. And so they all kind of, the ones that progressed ended up with the same kind of shortness of breath, feeling like they can't catch their breath, the cough, the incessant coughing, and then eventually kind of like that loss of sense of taste and smell. But, I just tell people that's my case for vaccination is, every time you get infected, you're rolling that dice. And I don't personally like to roll the dice with anybody's life, but, vaccination doesn't prevent 100% from you getting sick. But in general, you have a lower likelihood of needing hospitalization. You have a lower likelihood of dying. And so when I got the guy who was positive for the 3rd time, we're just kind of like, dude, he's vaccinated. Or he said he was going to move to Vegas because he's obviously the luckiest guy alive. So we weren't sure which way he was going to go with it, but I think he's getting vaccinated.
Yeah, the long haul. Our good friend Russell Izumo, who was on our show last year, he was one of the early ones that got COVID. He still suffers today. My daughter, unfortunately, right now as we speak, is having she's having a cough now. That these are remnants from COVID. She's not positive, but it's the long. I told her that's the long haul. She's having difficulty in breathing, and her recovery time from walking up the steps or doing her normal duties, the recovery time is a lot longer. So it's a frustrating thing to watch, and unfortunately, if she could do it all over again, obviously she would have got vaccinated. But so long haul is real, and Russell says he kind of recovered, but he still every so often he has bouts with the breathing and I just talked to him last week, and it's like, wow, it's been over a year. So it's nothing to mess around with, guys. And people keep saying it's just a cold. It's just a cold. Come on, people, just a flu. Anyway.
Yeah. I see Laurel has a question on the side. And so this one is a kind of a more specific question about blood diseases and secondary lymphedema. So I did have somebody consult. So what we did was, I think early on there was a nationwide, so this is for Laurel, sorry. But there was a nationwide, we were calling someone nationally. And so basically what they told me was, you would not be somebody that I would just so I do a lot of community vaccinations. So we set up wherever it's easier for people. You would actually be somebody that I would have come to my clinic where we could monitor you a little bit closer. I still support the vaccines because they said essentially it's recommended specifically because of your health risk that you get vaccinated. They just they were recommending that you do it in a setting where like a health professional or somebody can be there in case you need to be transferred someplace urgently. And so for that, I typically would, there are a handful of patients that I have them come to us. We keep them in the clinic so that we can put oxygen on them if we need to. We can draw blood if we need to. We still fully recommend that you get vaccinated, but just be in a safe setting that you could be medically supported should you need it.
And the final comment from our good friend Lana.
Can. It's good. It's good. Just tell Miscovich. Wait, are you on Big Island?
She's on Oahu. She's on Oahu.
Oh,
So
even
Doc,
better, you can have Miscovich.
you're going to have to relocate, Doc. Sorry, you're going to have to relocate to Oahu.
I actually still am. My main license is still tied to the Kaneohe, and it's just that I cover out here too. So just let me know.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Any closing thoughts for our viewers before we let you go?
So let's see, which one should we talk about?
Whatever you want, girl.
So I think we give you guys. Well, I did. I kind of dumped a lot of information, and it was I'm obviously like I love this stuff. So this is kind of like it's my happy time, but I know that it's a lot. So I think don't be hard on yourselves. I think you don't need to know everything, and I think that's the hardest part. I told we've had people change their minds over time, and it seems like people are having a hard time with that. And I want you maybe all to hear it, that one of the best signs of humanity and just your ability to learn is to change your mind when you're presented with information that makes sense. So people who are anti-vax and then change their mind, that's actually showing so much more humanity and so much more intelligence than fighting for something that doesn't make sense. And I think that the hardest part for me is I'm watching people struggle with this. It's I talked with a couple of my friends in the mainland about we were reminiscing about Kamehameha days and all of the forward thinking ali'i that we had, that kind of like they knew that education was super important to our health. And then taking care of the lahui meant that we actually had to kind of prioritize the health of the vulnerable. And I work with Lili'u Kalani Trust a lot, and I think of all the keiki, right? So they were particularly focused on kids who had lost their parents. So they lost their parents because their parents often contracted illnesses that now we can treat. And so I think in the back of my head, I'm always thinking about that. I'm like, we need to I like, that's what I encourage. That's why I accept all these speaking times. I will always kind of share whatever answers you guys need, because I think the education and just sharing good knowledge is the key to our health, right? So I don't think any less of my patients who are gonna like fight me about this, but I tell them I am gonna present you this information again and again and again. And this is something that I don't feel is like there's two sides to this. Like, there's science that's constantly progressing and constantly learning and constantly creating good things. And I don't care where you live or who you are, we are going to make sure that you benefit from it equally. So, and I think that is the debt that I owe Pauahi when I went to Kamehameha. And I know that Uncle Charlie, he knows that. So it's, as an alum and as a native Hawaiian, I do not take that lightly. And so, all of the research we're doing and all of the learning we're doing and all of these like fantastic kind of leap forwards in medicine, we're always going to bring it back to the same, like everyone. And, with Dr. Miscovich, we particularly want to make sure that we're focusing on the people who are not focused on before. And so that's why we're kind of, we focus on the people who need it the most. And oftentimes that's our own people. I don't know if that.
Wow, that's like quite inspiring. Chicken skin moment. Chicken skin moment. Thank you. Charlie can relate because he's a native Hawaiian. He went to Kamehameha. I only went Kamehameha drive-in. That's all. I never been to the school.
Still counts.
Charles. You're muted, Charles. You're muted.
Yeah, thank you very
Oh,
much again for our lovely guests joining us tonight. Um, a lot we've learned a lot, but I do want to say that this goes out to our viewers. Thank you again for the commitment for following along with us. I said this before, and I'm going to say it again. We got the best bunch of people that could ever get involved. But when someone doesn't agree with someone's comments, you folks don't have to take it on air and continue bashing each other with your comments on this show. Because I saw our feed, I saw people dropping off because there was just so much things going on, and then it saddens me. And you know who I'm talking about. So please, when we bring someone on of this caliber, let them. That's what they're here for. They're here to get the information out to all of you. They're not here to be a sideline to a show while people are getting into it with each other with comments. We don't need that. And I'm sorry for bringing this out, but I just got frustrated to the point, and all of our time is important. Doctor Dr. Akiona's time is important. My time, Mel's time is important. And all of your time is important because that's the reason why you're joining us. But please, I'm gonna say it again. Do not get engaged if you folks don't agree with comments. Okay? They're comments. What they're doing, you're distracting from the rest out there who truly want to hear what's going on. I've said it and I'm sorry I had to be this way, but I had to put my foot down on this one because normally I don't do that. Okay, Mel?
is that it?
Yep, that's it.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, Charlie. So I don't have to. And I'm gonna tell you right now, Charlie. Um, I sorry. I am sorry because I allowed it to go on.
No.
But even after your comment, she started up again. So I blocked her. So she's gone. Done. Aloha no. I wanted to wait. I trying to. It's so important, this information for everybody. So important for everybody. And Doc, I know you at home you get one dog. I heard you say you get one kid. You get so many other things you could have been doing tonight, but no, you chose to come here and educate our viewers and me and Charlie.
Thank you.
So
Thank you very much.
my tolerance is normally very very low. I was feeling good with myself tonight. I was being very lenient, but that person is gone, and she will never be able to come back on our show again. And I hate doing that, but that one had to happen. So anyway, appreciate you, Doc. Your
Yes,
you know
very much.
your information. I'm gonna go find this comment because I think it says exactly how I feel. I sorry. I should have. I was kind of freak here. This is how I feel. You can hear her pono in her voice, no matter why you laugh. This is an emotional moment. Why are you
No,
laughing for?
no, I'll tell you why after.
Okay, you can hear her pono in her voice, no matter what medical group she's in. You can hear it. Mahalo, doc. I think that's kind of how we all feel because we hear a lot of experts and but you down to earth local girl, just boom, shaka laka boom. People can understand and relate. I think you answered all the questions that we tossed at you. And I think a lot of people got educated tonight, including myself. So
Yay.
thank you for your time. Thank you for your time, and thank you for what you do in the community
Yes.
that you serve.
Yeah, no.
Because there was one of our guests, one of our viewers, I should say. Um, I think her name was, and I hate when I can't remember names, but she, when you mentioned about it's okay to change people's minds, when people, the anti-vaxxers that change their mind, and she posted, she said, that was me, Janelle, Janelle Elders. She was one of a few that after watching our guests like yourself change their mind, change their position because they got
And
informed
she's
and
on the Big
educated.
Island too.
Oh,
She's
she's
on the
on the
Big.
Big Island. Oh,
She's on
cool.
the Big Island. Yeah.
And I remember that night like it was yesterday how she came on, and we've seen this several times now. Because of last night's show, I decided to go get the vaccination today, and that really touches my heart. That says a lot about our guests, and the ability for our guests to transfer that belief over to these people. And you said it right. We've been studying this for almost 2 years now. The data does not lie. The statistics do not lie. And while Charlie and I are never not there to push anybody to get vaccinated, we believe it is a matter of choice. We do know for a fact that it is the best way to get through this pandemic in the quickest way possible. So appreciate you, Doc. I thank you so much. You're great. Now you can explain why you're laughing about that comment.
Well, first of all, I'm bad at. I know my daughter tells me I'm bad at compliments. Just in general, I'm bad at it. But no, because I was talking with Mike Alameda, and he said Ola Kino hero, you're an Ola Kino hero, and I was like, oh my god, that's heavy, and we started cracking up. So that's why he's like, I'm that's it. I'm the first time you're hearing it. So, I mean, I'm just happy. I love doing my job. I get to use my sarcasm for good. We like my ability to argue with my parents actually is going is now I just talking story with people, and but I'm glad that helps. Just knowing that changing your mind is actually one of the like a most amazing things. It's no be shame. That's actually exactly what we should be doing. If you learn something new, change your mind. It's okay.
It's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So, with that, to our village people, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for joining us tonight. Tomorrow night, we're not going to be on because we got our spooktacular for the keiki tomorrow. We're going to be drive through Halloween for those kids that have not been able to participate. We will be. Look at that doggy.
He's so
Look at
tired.
that. Yeah, it looks like he's sleeping.
He was sleeping.
We will be back on Monday unless something drastic pops up. But we'll be back on Monday night, guys, next week. Please stay safe. Have a super rest of the week and a weekend. We love you guys. You guys take care. Stay safe. God bless. Oh, and mahalo again for your donations to the Pop Warner. We appreciate you guys. Take